Snaggledoodles. If you recall, in chapter 4, Emily was daydreaming about being a flower girl, Miss Vincent's wedding, and she's a little jealous of Linda, who also wants to be a flower girl. Chapter 5. Time for inventing groups, Miss Rooney said on Tuesday. Emily had 2 more spelling words to do. She had to write them 3 times each. That would be 6 words, she thought. She bent over her paper. She wrote them down as fast as she could. Then she looked over her paper. She had spelled please without the last E. That magic E. She erased 3 times. She stuck in her 3 E's. At last she was finished. She raced to her seat at the science table. She was the last one there. Linda Lorca was frowning. From now on, she said, I hope people are on time. Emily didn't look at Linda. She kept her eyes on the fish tank. She watched Drake and Harry swimming around. Miss Rooney said to think first. Linda began. Emily picked up the cereal box. It had a big red circle in the middle. It said POW on top. P-O-W. Maybe we could make, Emily began to say. Then she stopped. She couldn't think of one thing to invent. I forgot to think this week, Matthew said. I forgot too, said Alex. Well, said Linda, you don't have to think. I've already thought. Matthew slid down on his seat. He was yawning. You can infer he's kind of bored. Emily tapped the fish tank. Harry swam over to her. So here we are at the table. You can always tell Emily by her hair. Linda, she's the one frowning. There you go. And then you have Matthew and Alex and Beast. We're going to make a tree, Linda said, just like a Christmas tree. This is April, Matthew said. Time for baseball. I know, said Linda. We're going to call it an April tree. Cut up the box, hang the balloons on it, the socks. She looked around, smiling. Emily kept looking at Harry and Drake. She was shaking her head at the same time. I think Jason's group is making a tree, said Matthew. They looked toward the front of the room. Jason's group had a brown stick. They were hanging paper towels all over it. Well, how do you know that's a tree? Linda asked. Matthew raised his shoulders. Looks like a toilet paper tree, he said. He and Alex poked each other. They started to laugh. Alex picked up his sock. 2 holes in this, he said. He poked his fingers through the holes. He wiggled them at Matthew. We could make a sock worm, Matthew said. They started to laugh again. I don't think an April tree is any good, Emily said. Ooh. Stop fooling around, Linda told Matthew and Alex. She was frowning. That means she's not happy. Alex wiggled his fingers at her. Then we'll make Linda began and stopped. What's Wayne's group making? Emily looked toward the side of the room. Dawn was covering something up. A bunch of yellow and purple plates stuck together. What's that? Matthew asked. Who knows, Linda said, but everybody else has started something. We may never think of anything, Emily said. We're the worst, said Matthew. Right, said Emily. The worst group in the class. Well, that's because we have the worst people, Linda said. Nobody listens. That's because we have the worst leader, Emily said. Ooh, that's gonna hurt. She began to put the invention things in a row. She picked up an iron tool. I don't even know what this is. You don't know what anything is, Linda said. It's a lock, said Matthew. No, said Alex. I think it's food for a sockworm. He grabbed the tool. He started to make growling noises. Just then Miss Vincent walked by. Having a little trouble getting started, she asked. We can't think of anything, said Matthew. Inventing is hard, said Miss Vincent. She patted Linda's shoulders. Then she went to the front of the room again. Emily swallowed. Too bad Miss Vincent didn't know that Linda was a bad leader. Too bad Miss Vincent didn't know the boys were fooling around. Emily put her hand in the air. She wouldn't be a tattletale. She just asked to go to another group. Just then, Sherry Dent's hand shot up. Miss Rooney nodded at her. I want to get out of Wayne's group, Sherry said. Ooh, so someone beat Emily to it. Miss Rooney frowned. You're supposed to work together. So you know she's not happy with that. Emily quickly put her hand down. Look how nicely Jason's group is working, Miss Rooney said. Emily looked at Jason's group. They were throwing more paper on the brown stick. Snaggledoodles on Jason, she said under her breath. Miss Shirley clapped her hands. Time for art. We have to stop work for this week. Emily went back to her seat. She looked over at Linda Lorca. Linda's mouth was wiggling a little. Emily wondered if she was going to cry. Maybe it was because no one liked her invention, her silly invention. Or maybe it was because she wasn't a good leader. Emily pulled out her art smock. Suddenly she felt a little sorry for Linda. It might not be as much fun being a leader after all. So you see, my friends, Emily, her words were not very kind to Linda. And I think she's right. It's not always easy being a leader. You have a lot of responsibility. Sometimes people get upset with your decisions. But Emily, it wasn't a good idea to be so hurtful. Her words were hurtful to Linda. And, I don't know what's going to happen in the next chapter. I don't know if they can pull it together, if they can cooperate, if they can stop fooling around and get down to business, or maybe Emily will think about what she said and maybe come to Linda and maybe cooperate a little bit more. So we shall find out in chapter 6, which is coming up tomorrow. Adios, Shermanators.